What if everything you were taught about the beginning of civilization is wrong, not slightly wrong, not a minor error in a textbook, completely, fundamentally, structurally wrong? Because scattered across 5 continents, buried under oceans, hidden inside mountains, and standing in plain sight on windswept hills, are structures that should not exist. Structures built with a precision we struggle to explain even today. Structures aligned to stars with an accuracy that took us modern telescopes to rediscover. Structures so massive, so perfectly engineered, that when Rome's greatest builders arrived at one of them, they gave up and built on top instead. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to visit 10 of these places, and by the end, I promise you, you will never look at human history the same way again. Let's begin at the very beginning, or what we think is the beginning. Site 1, Gobekli Tepe, southeastern Turkey, a hill the local shepherds refused to go near. They called it cursed. For decades it sat untouched, ignored, forgotten. Then, in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt decided to dig. What came out of that hill rewrote human history. Massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some standing 18 feet tall, weighing up to 20 tons, carved with artistic precision that seems impossible for the people who supposedly made them. Foxes, lions, scorpions, vultures, serpents, over 200 animal reliefs etched into stone with surgical skill. And the date? Radiocarbon analysis puts construction at 9,600 BC. That is 11,600 years ago. 6,000 years before Stonehenge. 7,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids. Here is the part that keeps archaeologists awake at night. There are no kitchens here. No trash pits. No sleeping quarters. No sign that anyone ever lived at this site. This is purely a temple, built by people who, according to everything we were taught, shouldn't have been capable of building anything more complex than a campfire. Analysis suggests a workforce of at least 500 people, coordinated over decades, from people who were supposed to be wandering the earth with spears, eating whatever they could find, and then, around 8,000 BC, someone buried it, deliberately, thousands of tons of sediment, packed around every pillar, every carving, every stone circle. Someone wanted to hide this place, or preserve it. We still don't know which, but here is a question that haunts every researcher who visits. The craftsmanship shows no signs of learning, no rough early attempts, no evolution from crude to refined. The earliest pillars are just as perfectly made as the latest ones, as if the builders arrived already knowing exactly what they were doing. Where did that knowledge come from? Site 2, Yonaguni Monument. In 1987, a dive tour operator named Kihachiro Aratake was searching for hammerhead sharks off Japan's Yonaguni Island. He didn't find the sharks. What he found instead has been debated by scientists, archaeologists, and governments ever since. 100 feet beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, a massive stone structure, perfectly straight edges, right-angle corners, terraces rising like a staircase on the ocean floor, a flat platform nearly 90 feet above the seabed, stretching over 500 feet in length. Here is the scientific problem. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus spent 15 years diving this site. He documented quarry marks, tool marks, post holes drilled into underwater bedrock. Nature does not drill holes. If the structure is artificial, it was built when this area was above sea level, between 12,000 and 10,000 years ago. That would place its construction 8,000 years before any known Japanese civilization. Skeptics argue it's natural. Sandstone fractures in straight lines creating terrace effects. Just geology. But sandstone doesn't create symmetrical staircases with identical step heights. It doesn't produce apparent roadways connecting different levels. And it doesn't drill cylindrical post holes into bedrock. A stone circle was also found nearby, standing pillars arranged in a ring, reminiscent of sites found on the other side of the world, coincidence or evidence of maritime culture that once spread across the Pacific, before the ocean swallowed its cities whole. We don't know. Japanese authorities have restricted access to the site. Independent research teams have been repeatedly denied. Whatever the truth is, someone doesn't want us to find it. Site 3, Gunung Padang. From the outside, it just looks like a hill, A forested hill in West Java, Indonesia, covered in columnar basalt rocks scattered across terrace levels. Local people have considered it sacred for centuries, but nobody asked what was inside until 2010, when geologist Danny Hillman Nadewajaja pointed a ground-penetrating radar at it. The hill was hollow. Beneath the surface, buried chambers, massive megaliths arranged in precise patterns, and the outline of a colossal step pyramid, extending 300 feet underground. Then came the carbon dating. The surface layer dated to around 3,500 BCE. The layer beneath, 8,000 BC. Deeper still, 12,000 to 13,000 BC. And the deepest excavated sections, 20,000 to 22,000 BC. 20,000 years ago, we were supposed to be in the early Stone Age, making hand axes and hunting mammoths. Critics say the ancient dates come from natural lava flows, not human construction, just geology. But Nadewajaja's team pulled samples from what appear to be artificial fill material, not virgin bedrock. The radar shows rectangular chambers, not random volcanic cavities. And here is the detail that silences the skeptics. The columnar basalt stones on the surface are arranged in neat rows, aligned to cardinal directions. Nature doesn't do that. Nature doesn't build pyramids. Nature doesn't align stone rows to north-south, east and west. If Nadewajaja is right, Gunung Padang is the oldest pyramid on Earth, and whatever civilization built it 20,000 years ago vanished completely. The underground chambers revealed by radar have never been fully excavated. The Indonesian government keeps stopping the research. Why? Site 4, Dwarka. For thousands of years, Dwarka was considered mythology. Ancient Hindu texts described it as a golden city, a place of towering temples and crystal gates, submerged beneath the sea after Lord Krishna's death. Scholars called it a metaphor, a beautiful story. Then in the year 2000, a routine pollution survey changed everything. India's National Institute of Ocean Technology was scanning the seafloor off Gujarat when their sonar picked up geometric patterns on the seabed. 120 feet underwater, stone walls, foundations, building complexes spread across a grid pattern spanning 5 miles. A piece of fossilized wood from the site dated to 7,500 BCE. Stone anchors and pillars consistent with ancient port infrastructure. 5 miles of submerged urban planning. Skeptics argue it's beach rock. Natural formations creating rectangular-looking patterns. Geology playing tricks. But beach rock doesn't form perfect 90-degree corners. Natural formations don't create symmetrical grids visible across miles of seafloor. And the ancient text names the city's port, its construction, and its submersion by the sea with specific geographic accuracy. If a myth describes geological reality with that level of accuracy, at what point does it stop being a myth? Independent research teams have been blocked. The sediment layer is too thick for deeper sonar. And underneath all of that, something waits. Site 5, Puma Punku. Pick up one of the scattered stone blocks at Puma Punku, Bolivia, 12,800 feet above sea level, and look at it closely. The surface is perfectly flat, not approximately flat, not impressively flat for ancient builders. Flat to within 0.02 inches, 50 microns. That is a modern machining standard. The drill holes across these stones have diameters so uniform, so perfectly circular, that engineers examining them have been left without an explanation. No chisel marks, no tool traces. Under microscopic analysis, nothing. The H-blocks, stones that interlock in 3 dimensions like precision-engineered components, fit together with complexity that would challenge a modern CNC machine. The people who supposedly made these had bronze chisels and no written language. Experiments by engineers attempting to replicate this precision using ancient tools have failed. Not partially, completely. Bronze doesn't cut andesite. Andesite is harder than bronze. This is not controversial. It's physics. The nearest andesite quarry is over 50 miles away, across Lake Titicaca. How do you move stones weighing over 100 tons across a high-altitude lake, without wheels, without pulleys, without draft animals? And the site shows evidence of violent, catastrophic destruction, massive stones scattered as if thrown by an enormous force. Something ended whatever was built here. Something sudden and total. Even the Incas, masters of stonework, who came 500 years later, couldn't replicate what's here. So who built it and what destroyed it? Site 6, Baalbek. The Romans were the greatest engineers of the ancient world. Aqueducts, amphitheaters, roads that cross continents. When Roman architects arrived in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley to build the Temple of Jupiter, they found something already there, a foundation platform, made of stone so enormous, so perfectly fitted, that the Romans built their temple on top and never mentioned it in any record. Not one Roman historian, engineer, or official documented how that platform was made or who made it. The 3 central stones, called the trilithon, each measure 64 feet long, 14 feet tall, 12 feet wide. Each one weighs approximately 800 tons, fitted together with joints so tight that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. In the quarry half a mile away, there's a stone that was cut but never moved. It weighs 1,000 tons. In 2014, a 4th stone was found in the same quarry. Estimated weight, 1,650 tons. Engineers have calculated that moving an 800-ton stone on rollers would require between 40,000 and 60,000 workers in perfect coordination across uneven terrain, uphill. If the Romans managed this, why didn't they celebrate it? Roman engineers documented everything. Trajan's Column, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, all celebrated in stone and text. The Baalbek Foundation, silence, because they didn't build it, they found it, just like us. Site 7, Madol. Imagine sailing across empty ocean for weeks until you reach a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific. You approach by canoe, and as you reach the reef, massive stone walls rise from the water around you. Nearly 100 artificial islands, connected by canals, built from basalt logs weighing up to 50 tons each, stacked without mortar, without metal tools, without wheels, across 170 acres of shallow coral reef. An estimated 750,000 metric tons of basalt transported here to a remote Pacific island by a population that probably never exceeded a few thousand people. The oral traditions of Pompeii say the stones flew through the air, moved by twin sorcerers using magic. We dismiss this as legend, but that same story, stones moving through the air, defying gravity, appears at multiple megalithic sites across the world. Folklore maybe? Or maybe it's a description, encoded in story, because the actual technique was too difficult to preserve any other way. Site 8, Bimini Road. In 1968, a pilot named J. Manson Valentine was flying low over the Bahamas when he spotted something 18 feet below the surface, a perfectly straight line of rectangular limestone blocks, stretching over 2,000 feet across the seafloor, each one aligned with geometric precision, like a road or a harbor wall. The discovery made headlines, partly because psychic Edgar Cayce had predicted in 1938 that evidence of Atlantis would be found near Bimini in 1968 or 1969. Geologists say it's beach rock, natural cementation that fractures along straight lines. Just geology, but uniform rectangular blocks aligned in straight lines for 2,000 feet is not a description of beach rock. Resistivity surveys in 2005 showed the blocks rest on a foundation layer, not natural bedrock. Deliberate construction, if artificial, it was built when this area was above sea level, around 10 to 12,000 years ago. The same window when Dwarka was submerged, when Yonaguni was flooded, when coastal settlements worldwide disappeared beneath rising seas. Site 9, Caucasus Dolmens. Deep in the forest between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, spanning over 7,000 square miles, more than 3,000 stone chambers stand in silence, each one built from massive stone slabs, fitted without mortar, capped with a roof stone weighing up to 30 tons, and each one features a perfectly circular entrance hole, uniform in diameter, smooth-edged, precisely cut, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. 3,000 structures, perfect circles, across 7,000 square miles, built by no one recorded in any history. The local indigenous groups have no oral tradition of building them. The structures simply exist, older than memory. Acoustic studies by the Russian Academy of Sciences in 2014 revealed something strange. The chambers resonate at specific frequencies. They were designed to amplify sound in particular ways. These are not just tombs. Something else was happening inside them. Site 10, Adam's Calendar. Our final stop is in Mpumalanga Province, South Africa, a circle of weathered dolerite stones arranged on a mountain ridge. Unremarkable at first glance. Until you look at where they're pointing, the stones mark cardinal directions with precision. They track the solstices and equinoxes, and they align with the rising position of Orion's belt, not as it appears today, not 1,000 years ago, but 75,000 years ago. If that astronomical calculation is correct, this is the oldest man-made structure on Earth, built 50,000 years before Gobekli Tepe, before agriculture, before cities, before any timeline we have ever proposed for human civilization. Skeptics say the alignments are coincidental, that the stones were placed naturally or built recently as cattle enclosures. But cattle enclosures are not aligned to cardinal directions, and natural erosion does not arrange stones in astronomical patterns. The surrounding landscape contains more than 10 million stone circle structures, visible in aerial and satellite photography across hundreds of miles of South Africa. 10 million. That is not scattered settlement. That is the infrastructure of a civilization. Conclusion: 10 sites, 5 continents, each one impossible on its own. Together, they are something else. Gobekli Tepe shows us organized religion before farming. Yonaguni shows us construction before Japanese civilization. Gunung Padang shows us pyramid building 20,000 years ago. Dwarka shows us cities that match the descriptions of ancient myths. Puma Punku shows us a precision we cannot replicate. Baalbek shows us stones that silence Rome. Then Madol shows us a city built on a reef in the middle of the ocean. Bimini Road shows us geometry at the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. The Caucasus dolmens show us acoustic chambers older than memory. And Adam's Calendar shows us something that shouldn't exist at all. The mainstream explanation is convergent evolution. The idea that when humans are given enough time, they independently arrive at the same solutions. Big rocks, astronomical alignments, ceremonial architecture. That explanation requires us to believe that precision stone cutting to 50-micron tolerances is something Bronze Age craftsmen naturally develop independently. That multiple cultures on opposite sides of the planet independently learn to move 100-ton stones. That flood myths on every continent, Noah, Utnapishtim, Manu Viracocha, are all unrelated stories that just happen to describe the same catastrophe. At some point, convergent evolution stops being an explanation and starts being an excuse. The other possibility: what if history is not a straight line from primitive to advanced? What if it's a cycle? What if somewhere between 12,000 and 75,000 years ago, a civilization existed, one that understood engineering, astronomy, and construction at a level that took us until the 20th century to rediscover? What if a catastrophe erased it? And what if the survivors carried fragments of that knowledge forward, encoding it in stone and myth, because they understood that the next civilization to rise would eventually find the clues? What if these sites are not the beginning of civilization? What if they are the echo of its end? The stones don't answer. They just stand there, waiting for us to ask the right question.